Mayor and Board of Trustees of the Village of Wappingers Falls, and guests and attorney, you are now live.
Okay, good evening and welcome to the April 1st, 2020 special board meeting of the Village of Wappingers Falls. Before we get started, I'd like to ask the clerk if he could do the roll call.
Mayor Alexander.
Here.
Trustee Markajohn.
Here.
Trustee Davis.
Scott, you have to turn off your mute.
Trustee Komornick.
I'm here.
Here.
Trustee Davis is here. Trustee Huber.
Present.
Trustee Witten.
Here.
Trustee Panessa.
Here.
Village Attorney Wallace.
I'm here.
Okay, so if everybody would leave themselves on mute and raise their hands when it's time to talk, you can unmute yourself at that point when I say, just to keep the noise down. Okay, so tonight's meeting has been convened in accordance with the Governor's March 13th, 2020 Executive Order 202.1, which suspends certain provisions of the Open Meetings Law to allow a municipal board to convene a meeting via video conferencing. In accordance with the executive order, the public has been provided with the ability to view tonight's meeting, and a written transcript of the meeting will be prepared and provided at a later date. There has been a roll call of the village trustees, and there is a quorum present for this meeting. For future meetings, when we have our noticing act together, we will also
Matt, you don't need to read the rest of that.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll start with the agenda. Okay, for the first order of business, before we begin, I would like to just say a couple of comments. And one, if we were in a real board meeting, I would ask if we could just take a moment of silence for Highway Superintendent Tommy Marshall, who passed away over the weekend and was buried today. Highway Marshall was our village highway superintendent for over 20 years. He did amazing things for the village. He was a constant figure at the VFW, and all who knew him just had wonderful things to say about him. He was a good friend to all of us on the board, and he did very good work, and he will be missed. He was buried in St. Mary's Cemetery today, and of course, with this COVID-19 emergency going on, there was a limited service available. The Village of Wappingers Falls was represented by myself as mayor at the burial, and we were able to wave to the family and let them know that we will miss Tommy Marshall. So in other items of business, the village has also been participating in the state of emergency phone calls with the county executive, and we are in the midst of the COVID-19 state of emergency, and the Village of Wappingers Falls has not been spared, and we are currently, as of today, the Board of Health is reporting that the village has 12 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in its community. They haven't updated, actually, they will be updating soon, all we know is that there has been a 17% increase in COVID-19 cases throughout the county. This appears to be a bit lower percentage increase than we have had. So we started out since March 22nd, when the village got its first case of COVID-19. We were able to see that we had, that the county was at, hold on, I'm gonna try to share what I'm talking about here. Is that being shared now? Okay, so this is a Dutchess County Community Impact Dashboard that you can reach at the address above, which is dcny.maps.arcgis.com/apps/OPS dashboard /index.html number /8905 lowercase f 4428 lowercase f 3148 lowercase d 0b lowercase ffd 50 a 2f 3e 4db 11. And I'm sorry for reading all that out. If you just go on the Dutchess County website, you'll be able to find that much more quickly on the homepage. But here you can see that there's 466 confirmed cases as of today. The New York State has the end of day total at 547. And what we also know about what's going on is that the village of Wappingers Falls as an urbanized area is unfortunately leading the county in #2 position in infections per, both in infections per square mile and also in infections per 1,000 people. So that's not a surprise given that this virus really loves urbanized areas. It likes density, and it's very contagious. But what the message that we're trying to get out to people is that this is no joke. The village has a high percentage of elderly in it, and it is very concerned about the ability for this virus to spread rampantly throughout the village. So please take every precaution that the county and the state have been recommending. That includes social distancing, washing your hands, limiting your contact with others. This is very serious. Yesterday, we saw a 50% increase in our infections. And even though we're at the low number of 12, what we know is that this thing increases exponentially. And we're just asking you to watch out. On the left-hand side of the screen, you see the daily infection total for Dutchess County. And starting with the day that the village had its first infection on March 22nd, Dutchess County had 81 infections. And as of April 1st, today it's got up to 547 infections. So you can see that it's usually got an increase of 23%. So it looks like it's increasing at about a quarter. 25% a day around about, but it looks like things might be slowing down, but it's not doing that for the village. So we just want to again say that please take every precaution. So, and then we'll go on to the next thing on the agenda. So at this time, we're going to look into the new business. So we're going to talk about the approval of the government emergency plan. And we have our attorney, Craig Wallace, here, and I'd like him to lead us through this resolution. And Craig, while you're talking, I'm going to put up the actual resolution that we're talking about and share it.
Thank you, Mayor. All right, what you have before you, about to have before you, is a document that was prepared in conjunction with the executive orders that we've been getting from the governor's office, which are filtered down to the counties and the county executive. And, you know, we wanted to make sure that our local government, that the village was in lockstep and key with all branches of government. And there was a coordinated response. So it's the responsibility of the village as local government to prepare for a variety of emergency situations and to be flexible and versatile and to protect our citizens while responding and recovering effectively in a coordinated fashion. So your resolution adopting an emergency management plan was prepared for your adoption. Now it has some blanks in it that we would have to fill in because at the time we needed some input from you to determine who would be at the forefront of the village interface, so to speak. So I think that merits some discussion at least. But the actual emergency plan, where is that? Is that part of our papers here?
That's, I think that's what we have showing right now, right?
This is the resolution adopted.
Oh, the resolution. John, did you have that? John,
I don't recall seeing the actual plan.
no, we have that. Hold on.
We have it.
Yeah, it was sent to everybody last week.
Hold on. Okay, I will. Why don't you read through the agenda, the resolution itself?
All right, the resolution itself reads as follows. Whereas the purpose of the Emergency Management Plan, EMP, is to develop a comprehensive emergency management program that will provide a system to mitigate the effects of an emergency or disaster, preserve life, respond during emergencies, provide necessary assistance, and establish a recovery system in order to return the community to its normal state of affairs. And whereas the EMP attempts to clearly define the roles and responsibilities of each department and function within the village of Wappingers Falls by providing guidance in accomplishing the objectives of this plan with lists of guidelines, plans, assessments, and resources. And whereas the mayor and the village board of trustees have reviewed the EMP and recommend its adoption, and whereas the village board of trustees deems it in the best interest of the residents of the village of Wappingers Falls to adopt said EMP, now therefore be it resolved that the village board of trustees hereby adopts the EMP, a copy of which is affixed here too. And then there's a roll call for your vote. The resolution would be taking effect immediately.
Okay, and this was sent out to everybody on March 23rd, and I'm going to bring it up now. Okay. So so just on the first page, the Emergency Management Center for the Village of Wappingers Falls will be located at 2582 South Avenue or at another more convenient location as designated by the mayor. Once the mayor has declared an emergency exists, the EMC will be staffed on a 24-hour basis until the declared emergency subsides. And if you go to page 2 over here, the village clerk in number 9, under the supervision of the mayor, will be the person who disseminates information. And the village clerk will also be the one in number 10 who directs and arranges and restores communication. In number 11, the village mayor will direct all action. In number 12, the village mayor will carry out all measures. And number 13, the village mayor will direct the assignment of personnel. And number 14, the village mayor will carry out all measures necessary. And so those are the ways that we would fill out those parts of the emergency action management plan. And so I would like to ask if there are any questions from the board. This was sent out to all of you on March 23rd.
If the board is
Oh, good.
considering action, they would have to all move to amend or agree to amend the proposed EMP as just stated by you, Mayor. To put the mayor in as in place of all the blanks.
Okay, I don't see any questions. Are there any questions? If there are no questions, could we do a vote? And we'll do it because we're in this format as a roll call. And first, I would like to ask if there is a motion to pass this resolution. So I have a motion from Trustee Witten,
I'll second it.
seconded by Trustee Davis, and I'm going to do a roll call vote. Trustee Komornick,
Aye.
Trustee Huber,
Aye.
Trustee Panessa,
Aye.
Trustee Markajon.
Aye.
Okay. Trustee Witten. You just unmute yourself, Trustee Witten.
Aye.
Trustee Davis.
Aye.
Okay, so we will now use that as our emergency action management plan as directed. And okay, so let me get back to the agenda. Okay, the next item on the agenda. So I think what I'd like to do, since we have the planning consultant and the, if you don't mind, Nancy, is if we let the planning consultant and the attorney, Lisa Cobb, talk to us about the resolution that we're sending to the planning board to be discussed for amending chapter 151. So I'd like to skip in the agenda to this item, and I'm going to share the screen.
All right, Mayor, you just have to make a motion to suspend the rules and take this matter out of turn.
Okay, so I'd like to ask for a motion to suspend the rules and take this matter out of turn.
I'll make it.
Okay, so motion by Trustee Davis, second.
Second.
Seconded by Trustee Komornick. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
If there's none opposed, I'd like to ask Attorney Lisa Cobb and Planning Consultant Michelle Gregg to lead us through. And I'm guessing, I don't know which one of you wants to start.
I'll start and save Michelle.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. So we have this local law that, well, let's start. What we have on the law now is a law that, provision that has a loophole in it, in that it allows a dwelling unit, if it has a bit of space on the second floor, but most of its living space on the ground floor, it can evade the prohibition on ground floor dwellings. And when we put the law into place, the intent was to allow no ground floor dwellings. So the local law is designed to close that loophole. And there's also another existing inconsistency in our current code. There's a chart in section 15110 of the zoning code that has a blank for street level dwellings in the CMU district, which means that they're not permitted at all. But there's another section of the code, 151-20.1, which permits them under certain circumstances. So obviously a conflict, and the local law addresses that as well. But I want to stress that the local law doesn't have any effect on any other aspect of any use in any district. It is solely dealing with whether you can have ground floor residential. So it doesn't in any way limit or restrict any commercial uses that are allowed in any district. We also, in the proposed local law, are changing the name of dwellings from street level to ground floor, because there may be some instances where something is at the street level, but it may not be the ground floor. So we just want to be absolutely clear. And the existing definition of street level dwelling is somewhat sparse. It allows for the loophole, so the new definition was created. Since there are dwellings on a second floor that are accessed from a ground floor entry, we want to make clear that the entry space is not counted as long as it meets certain criteria, like it has stairs in it, it's not wider than 6 feet, so it can't realistically be used for living space. So all of those things are taken into account in the proposed local law. Now, I'm sure everyone remembers we had a version of this local law before, and there were some edits that were tried to be made to them during the meeting, but they didn't actually accomplish the goal that was sought to be accomplished. So we're just starting from scratch and doing a whole new law. So one other thing in the interim from when we did the first local law, we took a look at the provision in that 20.1 section that permitted ground floor dwellings in the CMU. And it said that they were permitted on all lots except for buildings fronting on New York State Route 9. And we're not quite sure from a legal perspective that that would be enforceable, because fronting is a sort of vague term. And if you have grass or parking or something that is distinct, setting the building back from Route 9, is it really fronting on Route 9? And we didn't want to get into all of that. And we thought as a practical matter, there's just really no need for ground floor dwellings in the commercial district, when what we're actually trying to promote in that is a commercial mixed use district. So you can have dwellings above the first floor, but the first floor is supposed to be for retail in the CMU. So that's the current version of the law as proposed. I can share my screen, which has the local law, if I get my act together. Hold on. There we go. And 1 second, it should be coming up. So, basically, when we eliminated one other exception I need to talk about, and then I'll let Michelle talk if she wants to. There was, in the original draft of this local law a couple of weeks ago, there was a proposed exception for a certain portion of the VC district that would have allowed ground floor dwellings in a limited area of the district. And it seemed pretty clear from the public comment that that was not what was desired. So this current version of the law takes out the exception, so that there is now no ground floor dwellings permitted anywhere in the VC district or anywhere in the CMU district. By doing that, it made the local law a lot shorter, because we didn't have to redo the chart, because there were no edits to the chart. So basically what we're doing by this local law is we are deleting section 20.1 of the code, because it conflicts with the chart that exists, which says that it's not permitted anywhere in the CMU district. And we are adding a new, we're deleting the definition of dwelling street level and adding a new definition of dwelling ground floor. And that's what you can see on your screen. And it's pretty straightforward, I think. So I don't know if the board has any questions or if Michelle wants to add anything to what I've just said.
I have a question when you're ready.
Sure, go ahead, Trustee Davis.
What about prior actions?
Was there a meeting prior where are you saying, asking about the prior local law?
Yes.
Um,
There
well,
would
yeah.
have to be a motion, from a procedural standpoint, there would have to be a motion to rescind its adoption at the last meeting of any version of this local law.
So my thought here is that we would take this recommendation from our attorney into account and tonight vote on whether or not we're sending this over to the planning board for their review. And then if we say that we want to do that, then we would rescind the other action, if that's the right thing to do.
I think procedurally, if you want to take this action and start the new law from scratch, what you would need to do is rescind the approval of the prior local law and the negative declaration that went along with it, and then work through the 3 steps that you need to introduce this local law, and then set a public hearing, et cetera, and begin the environmental process for this local law. And I'm going to stop sharing now my screen, so if anybody else wants to, we can do that.
Okay, are there any questions about the local law as it was presented by Lisa Cobb?
No, I'm good.
Okay, if there's no questions, then could we get a motion to rescind the approval of the local law at the last board meeting with the local law number what, John? Just unmute yourself first, John.
Is that to
It
include?
was
prior-
local law number 1.
Okay,
And the motion should include also rescinding the negative declaration from the prior.
so
local.
I could do both things in one motion? So,
Yes.
and then as well as the resolution for seeker designation.
No, it was actually the negative declaration. Yeah.
Negative declaration. So
Oh,
could we get a motion?
I will make a motion. I'll second it.
So we have a motion from trustee Witten and a second from trustee Davis. Do I understand that right?
I think it was
Trustee Huber.
Huber.
It was Huber and Davis?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so motion made by trustee Huber to rescind local law number 1 at the March 11th, 2020 meeting, as well as the negative declaration for the same law at the March 11th, 2020 meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and
I just want to ask both attorneys, if I may, did we capture everything in that motion that we needed to?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
could I also get a motion to send this local law as written, the proposed local law as written to the planning board for their comment and their recommendation?
before we do that, you actually need to formally introduce the local law. And
Okay.
we prepared a resolution to that effect. I sent a draft motion, a couple of series of draft motions earlier. If it's easier, I can just read it and then you can make that motion if you prefer.
Yeah, would you do that?
Do we need to address seeker now too?
Right, so I'll walk you guys all through that if that's all right. So the first motion should be, someone needs to introduce the proposed local, I hereby introduce the proposed local law and move that we authorize the village clerk to take further action with respect to the local law, including setting a public hearing and publicizing said hearing for May 13th at 7 p.m., circulating the proposed local law as required to neighboring municipalities and the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development, and circulating it and the related materials to the planning board for their report thereon. All is set forth in the written resolution introducing the local law. So someone can move that if you like.
So could I get a motion?
I'll make it.
So I have a motion from trustee Huber. Could I get a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Seconded by trustee Davis. And I'll do a roll call. So trustee Komornick, unmute yourself.
Aye.
Trustee Huber,
Aye.
trustee Panessa,
Aye.
trustee Markajon,
Aye.
trustee Witten,
Aye.
trustee Davis.
Aye.
Okay, and that's 6-0, and we will send that on to the village clerk, who will pass that through its process as stated.
Okay, the next action then would be to adopt the EAF and the lead agency resolution that's been prepared. So I would propose that someone make the following motion. I move that we adopt the environmental assessment form and lead agency resolution for the proposed local law as prepared, classifying the action as a type 1 under seeker and declaring ourselves to be the lead agency as there are no other involved agencies.
Okay, could I
I'll
get a
make it.
motion? Motion by trustee Komornick, second.
Second.
Seconded by trustee Huber. Do I have that right?
Yep.
Yep.
So trustee Komornick,
Aye.
trustee Huber,
Aye.
trustee Panessa,
Aye.
trustee Markajon,
Aye.
trustee Witten,
Aye.
trustee Davis,
Aye.
and that's 6-0. Is there anything else?
There's
Lisa?
one more. Yes.
Okay.
And then the board should adopt the coastal assessment form. So someone should make the following motion. I move that we adopt the coastal consistency form as prepared, declaring that the action will not have a significant effect upon any of the resource areas identified on the coastal area map and will not have a significant effect on any of the resources identified therein.
Okay, could I get a motion?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Davis, second.
Second.
Seconded by trustee Huber. Trustee Komornick,
Aye.
trustee Huber,
Aye.
trustee Panessa,
Aye.
trustee Markajon,
Aye.
trustee Witten,
Aye.
trustee Davis.
Aye.
Okay. All right, very
Mayor,
good.
I just would add one thing that basically from this point forward, the local law will take the same route that it took back in February, albeit under a different version. The one that you have before you is obviously a different version of the prior local law, but it will go to the planning board for advisory, and it will also go to county planning as well for their review and comment. And then we'll be adjourning this matter for a public hearing, assuming all of those steps take place at the next board meeting, which is what, May 8th?
13th.
13th,
May 13th, I'm sorry.
right.
Well, that would be probably the last action, is to set this down for a public hearing.
That was part of the initial resolution that was made, and it's included in the written document at May 13th at 7 p.m.
May 13th at 7 p.m.
So-
And Mayor, you might want to just, and Lisa, I guess we can address the fact that this is a totally different meeting based on, COVID-19. So public comment is going to be in the format of a lot of a different format than, previously our previous meetings. So there'll be email comment, room for email comment. There will also be a method in our Zoom or YouTube for the public to orally ask questions and participate at the public hearing.
So what we'll probably do is have a Zoom meeting for the public hearing that the next meeting will be held on the Zoom platform as well as streamed live on YouTube in all likelihood. But the public will have the ability to participate in the Zoom meeting the way the board members are participating now and be able to offer comments on the specific agenda items that are public hearings that they're interested in. There is also a chat function during Zoom, so the public can post questions there, and then we will read them into the record and have the board respond to them. And the public will be able to participate by telephone. And in the Zoom format, you dial in the same way, and you'll be able to listen to everything that's going on, so that you don't, and you can, there will be a time where we will unmute the public phones and ask if there are comments on there. And what we'll probably do is take comments alphabetically, just because when we can't see people, that's the easiest way. And have, people with last names from A to C will go first, and then D, E, F, et cetera, so that we can make sure that everyone who wants to get heard on the local law is heard. But we strongly encourage anyone who can to send email comments to the village clerk, or there's a site on the web, on the village website, where you can actually post your comments, and they will get into a box and will get to the board members, so that the board members can make sure we hear everyone's comments on this subject. And we'll be posting all this information on the website in the coming days, so that you'll know how to access the meeting and how you're able to participate and provide your comments. So.
Okay, are there any questions? All right, if there's no questions, I think this is the only thing that Lisa and Michelle are joining us for. So if the board's okay, I'd like to ask if it's okay with the board if I could let them leave the Zoom meeting now, if that's okay. Is everybody on the board okay with that?
I see Scott shaking his head,
Yes.
but I don't hear anything, so I'm leaving.
Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Good night.
Okay, good
Thank
night,
you.
thank you.
All right, thank you for coming, Michelle, Lisa. Appreciate it.
Okay, so now we'll go back to where we left off, and I'd like to ask Nancy Clark, who's coming in for John Zarowski of KC. John had a death in the family and can't be with us tonight. Nancy, could you get us up to date with what's going on with the projects? And while you're talking, Nancy, I was going to show the agenda, which has each item that is on your agenda in it. So is that okay with you?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. 2020 construction, Franny Reese Park is the contractor for that is Ben Saccone Incorporated. Construction started in early March, and on Friday, after the governor's executive order about essential construction versus non-essential, Saccone decided to stop work until further notice. So physical work ended at the end of Friday, March 27th. The submittal process continues for that job. Submittals are nearly done, that process of the contractor proposing what materials they're going to use to meet the specs, and we review them. That is nearly done, and the contractor will resume work when they are ready to, subject to the COVID restrictions. For the next project is the pedestrian safety improvements that the village recently put out for construction bidding. 3 bids were received on March 18th. The bids have been reviewed. The low bidder is Contact Construction Technologies Incorporated. Their bid amount was $592,202. They are the same contractor that built the pedestrian improvements in 2019. KC requests that the village board consider award to Contact Construction, but it be conditioned on New York State DOT approval for that award to happen. This project is part of the DOT local projects program. That's why DOT is involved. DOT is part of the funding for it. The other projects on our report, utility.
Nancy, why don't I go ahead and ask the board
Sure.
if we could get a vote on the
Sure.
apparent low bidder. So based on our village engineers review, there's 2 things here to consider. The village has a grant for $500,000. The bid came in at $592,000. This means that we would need to add $92,202 for the implementation of this in a bond. So I'd like to ask if we could prepare a bond resolution for the next meeting in the amount of $100,000 for this TAP project. And two, I would like to ask if we could get a resolution to accept the low bid in the amount of $592,202 from Contech Construction Technologies Incorporated for TAP PIN number 8761.74 pedestrian safety improvements project. Is there any, are there any questions about those two items?
I just got a question about the project itself, Mayor.
Yep.
The sidewalk on the east side of West Main Street, where you'll be putting lighting up, where Galucci Park is in Mount Carmel building. The sidewalk is, as we all know, it's separating from the curb. Now, has the contractors looked at this, and are they going to fix this? Or is it just going to be an issue after they fix it?
So I believe that Casey did, I know that Casey looked at it with me, and I think Nancy's going to answer the question.
Yes, the contract, the proposed construction work, it includes repointing the retaining wall that is in failure there. That portion of the sidewalk is failing towards the creek, and the village owns that parcel. So the bidders have an item for going behind the wall, repointing it, repairing the wall, and then building the sidewalk.
So doing all this work will definitely help that sidewalk out where it won't cave back in?
Right, it'll be replaced in a structurally appropriate manner. It won't be replaced in failure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not a change order then.
It's in the contract.
It's in the contract, okay. Great.
Okay, so are there any other questions about those two motions?
No.
If there's no other questions, could I get a motion to ask our treasurer to prepare a bond resolution for $100,000 for the TAP project for PIN number 8761.74 pedestrian safety improvements project to Contech? And just know that it is, I believe the Marcuselli Act requires that we would have to do the bond for the entire amount, Nancy? I think that's what we do. I'm not sure if you know the answer to that question, but
I don't know.
so,
Yes, we do.
so
You
it's,
have to-
it's,
You have
it's
to
prob-
the entire amount of the bid.
yeah. So we would have to bond for the entire amount. So actually I misspoke. So it would be an amount of $600,000 is what I'd like to ask the board to ask our treasurer to put together a bond resolution for. And knowing that we have a grant from the Department of Transportation for $500,000, but it is a reimbursement grant. So what we would do is we would go to a bond anticipation note, take out the money, and then pay it off before it actually went to bond. That's what we did with our last TAP project as well. So first, I would like to ask if we could get a bond resolution prepared for the next meeting to be discussed for $600,000. And so could I get a motion to do that?
I'll make it.
Second?
I'll second it.
Seconded. So that was a motion by trustee Komornick and a second by trustee Davis. Trustee Komornick,
Aye.
trustee Huber,
Aye.
trustee Panessa,
Aye.
trustee Markajon,
Aye.
trustee Witten,
Aye.
trustee Davis.
Aye.
Okay, I think I got everybody right. So next item, it would be, I'd like to ask if we could get a motion.
Mayor, hold on. That would be subject to bond council review as well.
Well, this isn't that. I think the next one. So all I'm asking is for a vote to ask our treasurer to prepare the paperwork and send it to the bond council. We would have a bond resolution.
Once that's
So we would have a bond resolution at the next meeting, and then he would give us that, right?
Yeah, as
Yeah.
long, under local finance law, as long as that is done before a formal vote, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so a contingent upon bond council. So the next item I'd like is, could I get a motion to award the Contact Construction Technologies Incorporated the bid for TAP project, pen number 8761.74 pedestrian safety improvements project?
It should be conditioned on DOT approval to do so.
And also, so with the condition of New York State Department of Transportation approval for the same.
and name the company.
Contact Construction Technologies Incorporated.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
I'll second.
So I got a motion from trustee Davis and a second from trustee Panessa. Trustee Komornick,
Aye.
trustee Huber,
Aye.
trustee Panessa,
Aye.
trustee Markajon,
Aye.
trustee Witten,
Aye.
trustee Davis.
Aye.
Okay, Nancy, you want to keep going?
Sure. Other projects and assignments, Village Utility Improvement Contract 5 includes drinking water, water main improvements, specifically connection from the Village of Wappingers Falls to the town of Wappinger on Losey Road. That project is in the design phase currently, and regulatory approvals and bidding are targeted for late 2020 and in preparation for 2021 construction. When we get further along in design, closer to our regulatory approval process, the village will host a public meeting with presentation by the engineer to share the plans for that project. The next project is the village water filter plant building. The village is working on, the KC is working on an engineer report for possible USDA funding. There's an application that we're putting together on behalf of the village for possible funding. And that's in support of the water filter building and facilities design that's underway. The deadline for that funding is a rolling deadline. Future water improvements in May, the next DWR SRF, that's Drinking Water State Revolving Loan Fund. That next intended use plan deadline is May 15th. The village, specifically the water board, is looking at possible future water improvements that they might include for a new listing. And in the agenda, there's a list of locations that have been discussed in prior meetings. And Casey will get confirmation through continued dialogue with the village about what to include in that listing update, and will provide whatever the village wants. The next project is Grease Trap Engineering Planning Grant. The village was able to get a planning grant to look at your local law relative to grease traps and perhaps find ways to modify the law to suit the needs in the village. And that's a 2-year grant, and the work for that planning grant will be completed in 2020. It's in the early stages. EPA grant brownfields assessment. The next steps are phase 2 assessments. We're waiting for a response from EPA. In the meantime, the project is on hold. Sewer and water infrastructure study. A draft report had been provided to the village in August of 19. KC will provide further circulation and or revisions when the time is appropriate for the village. Paji Terrace, sewer main and water main extensions. Health Department approval was granted for that design of the extensions back in November, and Casey will provide additional action if and as requested by the village in support of that work. That's over at the Habitat for Humanity housing towards the end of the street there. That's all we have for now.
Oh, just for the village board's consideration, the Paji Terrace sewer main and water main extension, we did receive the recommendation from the CDBG committee from Dutchess County to get that grant, which would pay for that work. And we're waiting to see how the federal budget happens, to see how that's actually awarded. So there's the possibility that it would be slightly reduced based upon that, the actual federal budget as it comes out. And the draft sewer and water report, which was provided in August 2019, is something that is going to be impacted by discussions being held by the Tri-Municipal Sewer Commission and the work that it proposes to do with the town. So this is something that the village and the town are considering, and it has to do with what work might or might not happen at the Tri-Municipal Sewer Commission. So that's one thing that has been going on since August 2019. Are there any other questions about anything else in the report from our village engineer?
The USDA funding for the filtration building, is that in form of a grant, or how's that work?
So the USDA offers grant funding as well as loan funding. So it operates in a very similar way to the Environmental Facilities Corporation, which is a New York State group. And so what the village of Wappingers Falls is strategically doing is it is providing an application to both funding agencies. They know that communities often do that, and they will talk to each other actually about our applications, and when they consider what they would or would not award. We've been very successful with the Environmental Facilities Corporation, as you know, because we maxed out. We were the first community in New York State to max out for 100% of the possible grant funding that we could have gotten through the Environmental Facilities Corporation. So they offered up to a max of $8 million. And in the second round of their offering, we were the first community to get the entire $8 million awarded to us. And that's what we put towards the work that we had been doing. So the USDA funding has two things that we like about it. It's possible that it might have more money. It's also possible that we might be more eligible and be a better candidate to get funding through USDA as opposed to the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation, because we maxed out. And but I would say that we're a good candidate for both programs. We actually went to the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation offices in Albany with KC Engineering and sat down and had a meeting that was very similar to the meeting that we had, I think, 3 or 4 years ago, Nancy, with the New York State EFC, which was where we were able to make our case for and show them the overall strategy of doing all of the water and sewer work, which has resulted in lots of paving and sidewalk work on where that needed to be done on top of digging up a water or sewer underground infrastructure. So we will see how we do. The USDA last year was getting a very high amount of money dedicated to its grant program compared to prior years, and that's why we decided that it would be a good time now that we're in this state of emergency with COVID-19, we are not exactly sure what's happening, but we are very far along with getting these applications ready. So we would just keep going, and you know, that's not a bad thing with the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation, because they actually just put you on a revolving list of other communities. They score your application, and then you move along with that application. And as the scoring criteria changes, you have the ability of changing how eligible you are for that money. So I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Nancy.
No, thank you. I think you covered it well, Matt.
Did that answer your question, Scott?
Yes, thank you. I have another one, if I may. The TAP project, did we talk about when that would start?
That's for Nancy.
Sure. We're working through the paperwork necessary for award. We're working through that with DOT. And now that the village has reviewed the bids, that will help me to respond to the remaining questions of DOT tomorrow. With the timeline to get through DOT process to award and pre-con, it's likely that construction would start in June, but it's a pretty short construction period. It should be anyway. It's a $500,000 job. Last year, the job was around $1 million, so it's small this year. And I would expect summertime construction.
And of course, Scott, that's subject to all of the uncertainty that we're facing today.
Yeah, basically.
Yes.
Okay, are there any other questions? I don't hear anybody saying anything, so I'm gonna ask if we could agree that Nancy couldn't leave. Are there any objections to that?
Yes. No, thank you, Nancy.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. Be well.
Thank you, Nancy. Take care.
Bye.
Please.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Village of Wappingers Falls is interested in filing for injunctive relief under section 6417 for property located at 25 South Remsen Avenue. This property has received multiple orders to remedy. It's paid multiple fines in our local court. And just for the board to see, I will share.
By way of background, Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, why don't you get started while I share the pictures?
All right.
So as the attorney is talking, I'll share pictures that we have of the subject property.
Last year, our building department brought an action in the name of the village against the owner of this particular property. And I tried the case actually in our local village court before Judge Chase. And this individual was actually convicted of all charges. And he was given maximum fines. And he in open court, pretty much advised the court that he would go to jail before he would pay any fines. So right now, those fines are just liens against his property, and there really is no teeth, I guess, so to speak, at the local justice court level. So, last month, there were constituents who were obviously concerned with this particular property as well as others. And with respect to this particular property, it's privately owned, and the only way forward with a more substantial action is to go to Supreme Court and file for injunctive relief. Now, even if you authorize the village attorney myself to prosecute an action there. I can tell you right now, every single court action right now is stayed, meaning everything's suspended because of COVID-19, and only certain matters can be filed in Supreme Court. And this is not one of them. This is not an emergency, deemed to be an emergency matter in the eyes of Supreme Court. So I would have to wait for that particular stay to be lifted by the administrative judge. Then we could proceed. And that could be, I don't know, late May, early June for all I know. But I'm just letting you know that no immediate action will be able to be filed because of COVID-19. Courts are shut down.
Can we clean it up and charge them?
Yes, there is a method in our code, but that would require him to have his due process he would have an opportunity to be heard, that's a consideration under the code.
Is that a different proceeding, or is that in conjunction with what you're talking about doing today?
Well, it's a different proceeding. We could, if the village did institute some type of self-help, I would caution you that, I don't want to disparage the individual. I just don't want anybody, I don't want any of any personnel to be placed in harm's way, by going on anybody's property. I would say that for any property in the village, within the confines of the village. So I would rather go the Supreme Court route, but I can understand that, your concerns, and that would be a topic for discussion for a later date.
Okay, well, I think certainly we could get started with the and go ahead and approve to allow the village attorney to file for the injunctive relief, knowing that that process alone might take some time, right, Craig?
It will, and I think that maybe any particular strategies or methods we can always talk about in executive session for the sake of protecting, because it is litigation. But the action itself would have to be authorized by the village board as a collective whole, and that we wouldn't be taking any action today. So I would ask you, I think maybe we should table it to the next meeting, and I'll come back and give the board some options, at which point, we can file at the appropriate time.
I got one question, if I may.
Go ahead.
Thank you. If we took it to the Supreme Court and it went up, it escalated to the Supreme Court, would that cost burden go back to the homeowner, or would that fall on us?
It would fall on us. The code allows for a recovery for any out-of-pocket expenses relating to, like our highway super, going and cleaning up the property for, like, taking care of dilapidated properties, mowing lawns, things of that nature. But attorney's fees are not recoverable under our code.
How many different charges did we levy against that property?
That's a better question for Brian Murphy, but I remember at least 3 or 4, and
multiple.
Yeah, there were multiple counts, and they had to do with abandoned vehicles, if my memory serves me correctly. And obviously, the individual is entitled to his day in court.
Sure.
So I'd rather not discuss the merits of the case, but I can advise you guys as to our options. That's about it. And
that's fine. Thank you.
He would have his due process rights to be heard.
Okay. So, Craig, do you think you could have those back to us by the meeting next week, the April 8th meeting?
Yeah.
Those options? Okay. So, John, could you put that on the agenda for next week on the April 8th meeting? Okay, he's nodding yes. And we'll go on to the next item if that's okay.
Yes.
So the next item on the agenda is we approved the bond resolution paperwork to be set up for the $700,000 bond for the fire truck, and I have that attached as an exhibit for you all. And
This would be subject to a roll call and supermajority.
yeah, so that is going to be at the April 8th meeting because the bond attorney set that up to be approved for the regular board meeting. I also just, so the number, but I did want to go back to this, the number of OTRs that were set up against 25 South Remsen were 5 in the last round. And let me find for you the bond resolution.
OTRs are orders of remedy. Mayor, I would add, I think that it'd be in the board's best interest to have our building department give a brief memo of the history of the enforcement attempts made at this particular location. I think it's relevant for their consideration so they can make a determination as to which route they want to take.
Okay, so John Carge, would you put that together for us so that we add that to the agenda for April 8th, a report from the code enforcement officer as described by the village attorney?
Yes, I will. Yes.
Okay, so I'm just gonna put up the, I'm gonna show, this is the bond resolution dated for April 8th. And so I'd just like the board to take a look at this and approve this to be brought up at the April 8th meeting. The bond resolution states that it authorizes the issuance of $700,000 of bonds for the village of Wappingers Falls, Dutchess County, to pay for the cost of the purchase of a firefighting vehicle and apparatus. And this would be for next week, but I'm introducing this as a resolution for the April 8th meeting because we asked the treasurer and the attorney to draw, the bond counsel attorney to draw up this resolution. And it's here for you to see and comment on before we bring it to the April 8th meeting. So I've got that up in front of you. It was in your package also. And so I would just like to ask if we could ask that somebody could introduce this to be brought up at the April 8th meeting. Could I get a motion?
I make a motion.
And that's from Trustee Witten.
Yes.
And could I get a second?
Second, Mayor.
Second from Trustee Huber. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Are there any opposed? There's none opposed, right?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay, so that will be at the April 8th meeting, the bond resolution as you saw it. The next item on the agenda is we took care of the TAP project for West Main Street and the bond resolution for that. And so over the past few meetings, our social media consultant and I sort of in-office IT person, our Todd Bowen, has proposed a new and improved phone system, and this would work especially well for the village in the case of an emergency where people are asked to leave the office. This is something that we definitely could use and would be a great benefit to us. So I'm just going to share the screen for this. I'm going to see if I can get this the right direction. I can. Good. And so hold on. So who am I going to read what this looks like, or is there, or John, do you have a better understanding of it?
Yeah, I think I can
Okay.
speak to it.
Good, that would be great. So I'm going to share the screen that shows the actual analysis. And it's got two different, the quotes that he got in were from 3 different services: Verizon, TPX, and Fish. And I believe this is just for the village hall, correct, John?
That's correct. The firehouse will be using Fish automatically because of the way they're set up. They have to have that supplier, which is okay because they're both that you're looking at are very competitive. We are leaning to TPX. They've been in the office several times. Todd's done a great deal of research with them. And I agree that TPX will provide the village hall with exactly what our tools are and what we need. The only question that the board would really, I would ask you to approve TPX tonight, but make a decision on, do we want to take it for 1 year at a cost of $39,25.96, or do we want to take it and buy it for $10,687? I lean toward buying it because if you renew, you take it for 1 year, then you renew 2 more, you're already going to be at that cost of what it would cost you to purchase the plan and the equipment. But again, that's, you can approve it for 1 year, or you can purchase it.
Okay, just for the board's understanding, the analysis that Todd did breaks out the annual cost for each year, and it compares it to each of the different options. So does anybody on the board want me to further explain the different options and the differences in price? If you don't, it looks like the apparent low price would be the buying option for TPX.
Mayor, can you read off the prices, Mayor?
All of them for every option?
Yeah.
Okay. So the TPX option for buying, and that would give us 3 free months in the first year TPX offers, and that would give us a total spent of $2,576. The second year would be a total spent of $3,016, and then the third year would be a total spent of $3,016. And there would be a payment each month for of $251.33. And there would be a one-time rebate taken off the year total at $440. And that would be, there's an upfront cost also of $2,080 to install. So if you take the $2,080, the $2,576 for the first year, the $3,016 for the second year, and the $3,016 for the third year, that's $10,687.88. So if you compare this to the other 3-year contract, which is all the way at the bottom, and can you see my cursor?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yes.
I'm pointing at the bottom that you would compare this to, and that would be for the 3-year contract with Fish. It would be, which was $3,792 with a $316 a month payment, for a total of $11,376. So that would be, so the $10,000 is cheaper than that. But we also asked for a 1-year contract comparison from each. And so those are here for TPX. And hold on. Okay, so the TPX version would be, I'm sorry, somebody was messaging me. I'm not sure how to get that, but anyway, the TPX version for the 1-year contract would be a total of $3,925, an upfront cost of $190, and $311.33 payment every month, versus the Fish 1-year contract at $4,536 with a $378 monthly payment. Fish also offered a 2-year deal, and that's located in between in this middle section here, and there's no corresponding thing to compare that to, but that is still higher than the 1-year or the 3-year option with TPX. So is that enough information for you, Kevin?
Yeah, I got it. I'm looking at it now on my phone here.
Okay.
I would just like to add that
Go ahead, John. I think John froze up for a minute.
Wow, looks pretty good.
Okay, are we all frozen here?
Oh, but somebody better go and check on John. I don't
I'm
like
good.
the way it looks.
We're all here, I think.
Okay, we're gonna ask our technical consultant to take a look at John Parge. His feed isn't coming in that well. Is there any other discussion on this? If there's no other discussion, can we get a motion to go with the TPX buying option with the 3-month free and the rebate at a total of $10,687.88?
I'll make it.
Second,
I'll second it. Todd did a great job with that.
seconded by Trustee Davis. Could I, so we're gonna need to remember this, that it was Ronnie Komornick. So John, are you with us? So unmute yourself, John.
I am
You're
now.
muted.
I don't know what happened.
Okay, so we're going with the buying option for the 3 years of payments with TPX, and we've got a motion to accept that from Ronnie Komornick and a second by Trustee Davis, and I'm about to do a roll call vote. So Ronnie,
Aye.
Trustee Huber, Trustee Huber, unmute yourself.
Aye.
Trustee Panessa,
Nay.
Trustee Markajon,
Aye.
Trustee Witten,
Aye.
Trustee Davis.
Aye.
Okay, so 5-1, we'll do the deal for the TPX. And we also would like to do the, I would like to also ask for a motion to continue to use Fish for the firehouse and to accept their proposal. Do you have the amount for that?
I don't. No. That's being handled separately by them.
Okay. Is the
That's a
fire-
continuation on a current contract anyway, isn't it?
I don't know if that's the case. Is that the case?
I don't know.
Does the fire committee have more information about that, Trustee Huber?
No, I don't at this time.
That's for the spotted dog, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, it's $104 a month.
I'll get back to you
No,
next.
no, it's $104 a month to continue with Fish, and it's got an initial payment of $1,400. So could I
I think we need to revisit that one.
okay, so we can bring that to the April 8th meeting, I think. Does the fire committee have any more information about this? Okay, so why don't we pass that on to the April 8th meeting? Since we don't have enough information.
I will talk to both chiefs this week, and I'll get back to you at the April 8th meeting, Mayor.
Okay. Okay, the next item on the agenda is okay, so I'd like to ask the attorney to talk to us about the governor's last executive order 202.11 issued on March 27th, 2020 regarding construction.
All right, Mayor, give me a minute. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm gonna put up the information.
I sent an email to everybody on this. I gotta find it.
I have it. It's right here.
Thank you.
So here is and I'll get to turn it around. Here's the actual executive order, and all right. And so this is the email. Can you see this?
Yes.
Right. Okay. So here you go.
All right. So basically, the governor has been very active. He's been in this crisis. I have to say, he's been pretty much exercising an executive order almost on a daily basis. So because of the volume of executive orders and the overbreadth of what they cover, there has been confusion all over the place, especially on the construction level, as to what is an essential business under construction. And it is absolutely driving all building departments crazy because, there was no initial direction as to who the enforcement arm from the executive order would be. Would it be the state police? Would it be the local sheriff's department? There was no direction for enforcement of the executive order on these various essential businesses. And there's a lot of businesses out there that are operating, kind of rogue and violating the executive order. So over the weekend, there was a series of follow-up opinions and direction from the governor's office and from some of the arms of the state, such as the Department of State Division Building Standards and Codes. And we sought guidance as to what was deemed to be essential as opposed to non-essential construction, because construction was one of the exempt activities that could go on. And we got a little more guidance on this. And basically, if you're building a deck and you hire a contractor, the contractor cannot come to your house with a crew of 6 guys and knock out the deck. It's not deemed to be essential construction. It's not deemed to be essential to the public. And basically, the only way you can get your deck done is if you do it yourself. Of course, get a permit first. Or if the contractor works by himself, like a one-man show. And that was the single worker exemption he's a sole employee on the job site because that's the only way to ensure social distancing would be instituted, is to have one contractor on the job site. Now, with respect to essential construction, for example, there's a bridge that's a culvert that's being worked on around the corner from my house right now, and that is deemed to be essential roads, bridges, hospitals, anything that has to do with public infrastructure. So those can go on, school projects, things of that nature. So there's been a little more direction with respect to that. In addition, the governor's office has basically also stated that there will be a $10,000 fine per violation, and that the local building departments would be responsible for enforcing them. So now we have a lot more direction on enforcement. So what I gave to you in your packages and the public can see is the executive order, basically, that established it. And paragraph 9 is the section that I just highlighted for you. So if anybody wants to comment on that, I'm open for business.
It's common sense.
So our code enforcement officer has been at the front lines of making sure that this is being complied with, and has actually already had to talk to a few businesses. So, and most notably, I issued a waiver for the emergency order to take care of the property at 10 Market Street so that they could continue construction, and that went out a few days ago to make sure that they were able to continue working. Actually, the date of this this order on Friday, which I believe was Friday. So are there any other questions about that?
No.
Okay, I think that let's see. That is the end of the published part of the agenda. We've structured it so that there are things that we've made sure that we've introduced here for the next meeting on April 8th, so that you have the ability to contact us. We've put a web contact form on the village website in case you want to contact us about any of the items on the agenda. And for the public hearings, we will be using those, but you could certainly use those for, there's certainly ways to contact your trustees and the mayor on the website there. So please use the contact forms. And we would just like to say that we'd like to welcome Billy Markajon, we've been missing for quite a few days now. Billy had a serious medical issue, but we're really glad to see your smiling face back with us. And we're just sorry that we can't get close to you.
Welcome back, Bill.
Thank you.
Okay, I think this concludes this part of the agenda. We just want to stress that you absolutely need to be careful out there. And we are very worried about the density of our community, the number of elderly in our community, and the contagious nature of this virus. So please, we're asking you, we're begging you to follow the recommendations of our county and our state, who have taken great leadership in this global virus threat to all of us, and make sure that this is not taken lightly and treated as the absolute deadly danger that it could be. So There are 12 cases out there as of yesterday. And still, that's all the news that we have as of today, even though we know that there was a 18% increase in the number of infections as of yesterday. We also know that there were 2,500 total tests taken, and there's only a total of 547 infections. We know that the tests, so there, it looks like there's about 2,000 test results waiting to be brought back to us. And so over the next couple of days, we'll see those results start to come back in and even more testing happen. So in all likelihood, we will see the number in the village increase. And if we all stay at home, we don't have to see that. So with that being said, could I get a motion to adjourn?
Before you do, can I just make a little public service thing here and just remind people to make sure that they do the census and fill the census out?
Oh, good.
Because if you don't, it's going to cost funding for communities, and it's just going to prohibit a lot of good programs that are funded for everyone. So just please make sure you reach out, ask your neighbors, ask your friends, and make sure they did the census. It's extremely important, and people really don't understand how important it is. But there's a lot of funding forwarded from that program. So please do it.
Okay, good. Thank you. So can we get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make it.
Second?
Second.
Seconded by Trustee Huber. Motion made by Trustee Komornick. All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Stay safe, everybody.